welcome back to my channel. My name's Catherine and I make videos about dyeing, sewing, and upcycling. If you're new here, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Today, I'm going to show you how I made this dress. I'm going to walk the runway for you guys so you can see what it really looks like. But I made this dress from a vintage pattern that I've had for a long time. And this is a cotton jersey that I dyed also a long time ago. I can't remember the exact order that I dyed this fabric, but I'm pretty sure I dyed it purple, then blue, and then black. So if you can see, it has a lot of different shades in it. It looks like it's kind of ice dyed, but it was not ice dyed. It's just old-fashioned vat dyeing with Rit. I'm gonna put the colors that I used down in the description below if you wanna try to recreate this fabric. So as many of my followers know, I am pregnant and I am actually making my own maternity wardrobe. So that's what I'm doing with this whole series. So if you're into that, be sure to subscribe so you can see all of the different things that I'm going to make. All right, so I'm gonna show you guys step by step how I made this dress. I'm gonna show you the finished result at the end.
So first things first, let's go over the supplies. I'm going to be using Butterick pattern 3634, a knit fabric, extra sharp pins, fabric scissors, a clear ruler, a marker for marking things, safety pins for fitting, thread for your straight stitch machine and your serger, a serger and a sewing machine, an iron and an ironing board. I will link all of my favorite supplies down in the description below. So first I'm going to take a look at the instructions and the layout of the pattern. I'm going to add binding instead of using hemming for this, so I'm not going to follow them perfectly, but it's always good to take a look. And I will link everything down in the description below. So I'm going to lay out my pattern pieces, and I am going to start by pinning it at the top bodice, and I'm going to lengthen it at the line where it says to lengthen or to shorten, and I'm swinging it out from the center front line. So here's a little bit of a better view of what I did. I added 2 inches and I'm going to mark notches so that I know where to gather along the side seams, and I have added about 1.5 inches total flare on the center front. This pattern was a little small for my measurements, so I added 1/2 inch on the center back and on the side seam of the back just for good measure. I ended up actually trimming this off from the center back at the end, but it's always better to have it be a little too big than a little too small in my experience. So next I just cut everything out and made sure to mark my notches. So like I said, I'm going to add binding to this dress. So I'm going to make my own binding. I'm making sure that the stretch is going with the binding so that it stretches with the dress. I'm cutting 1-inch strips, and I'm cutting just from the scraps that I have left over. So the next thing on the instructions is to stay stitch the front neckline and the armholes on the front. So I'm going to do that. Next, on the back pieces, I'm going to mark the tip of the darts with a marker very lightly, and then I take the paper off and I'm going to mark the ends on both sides of the center back. And then I'm going to mark the other side with a pin and then with a pen. Next, I'm going to pin up the center back to make sure that the darts that I have marked are on the same side of the fabric. So now I'm going to pin up my darts, and I am going to just carefully make sure that the notches are lining up and start at the edge and work my way to the center part of the dart. After I get it pinned, I'm going to mark it with a ruler and a marker, and I'm going to make sure to do this on both sides. After I mark them, I'm going to sew them, and I'm going to start at the tip of the dart and leave a tail. After I'm done sewing, I'm going to take that tail and tie it 3 times. So I'm going to do that instead of back tacking at the tip of the dart. Next, I'm going to sew up that center back seam. So now I'm moving back to the front of the dress, and I'm going to put the binding on the neckline. I'm going to fold the binding in half and pin all the raw edges together. As I pin, I pull the binding just so slightly so that it will not wave and get too long. So now I'm going to serge it super carefully, 1 centimeter at a time, and take all these pins out very carefully. Once the binding's on, I'm going to give it a press and pin the seam to the body of the dress. So now it's time to move to the back of the dress, and I am pressing those darts down and the center back seam to the side. I'm going to add the binding to the back, and you can see it's a little bit shorter than the entire length of the neckline, which is totally fine because I'm going to just ease that in as I pin it. So like I said, I'm going to pin the binding in half with the edges together. I'm just going to give it some steam so that it's not rolling around, and I'm going to start pinning in the center and work my way out to the sides. Once it's all pinned on, I'm going to serge it on very carefully. Now that the binding is on, I can put the dress together and see how it looks. I'm going to safety pin it together so that I can try it on and make sure it fits. The binding was kind of trying to turn out, so I decided to top stitch it with a zigzag stitch.
Okay, so I'm trying this on just for the neckline to see how it looks. I think it's too big for my neckline here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring these in a little bit more, like probably right about here. I think that would be a more flattering and realistic neckline for me. So what I'll do is I'll just mark like right here with some pins. It's always good to try things on when you're making something from a pattern, because the pattern can be, you know, a little weird, or not everyone is shaped the same. Yeah, it's coming along, and I think it's going to be really cool. So I'm just going to, I did this with safety pins on the inside, and I'm going to take it apart and redo it, try it on again, and see if it looks better.
So I unpinned the neckline and repinned it, and it looks a lot better. Here you can see it's lining up much better, and I am going to now check the side seam. The side seam has that gathering, and you can see it's lining up well from the armhole to the hemline, and I am going to add a little dart in the back center seam, which it looks messy here because it's just safety pinned for measurement. So I've added the dart. As you can see, it's just very slight, just for fit, and I will marrow that extra fabric off after I've checked it for fit. So now I've gone ahead and sewn the neckline. You can see that straight stitch there. And the next thing to do is to sew up the side seams. So I've pinned it a lot, especially in that shirring area. I just want to make sure I have plenty of pins, and I'm going to sew it up and try it on again.
So I'm in my studio and the lighting's a lot better. The fit is pretty darn good. I am getting some pulling under the arm here. So you can see when I put my arm down, it just kind of is like pulling. I'm pretty sure that once I open up this armhole, that is going to be eliminated. It's just very tight because it's serged on the edge. And I'm going to be very careful when I open up the armhole. I have opened up armholes before and it just got too big super fast. So when you open up an armhole, you want to be like really conservative because it does stretch because it's a circle. So it's the same thing on this side. So I think that's the next thing I'm going to do. But overall, I like the neck. I think it's like pretty flattering. And on the side, I have some ruching here. It's like pretty much, it's not that tight right now, but you know, eventually it will get tight, and the length is good. Let me show you.
So right now the dress is pretty big for me still. I'm going to take this seam in about 1/2 inch on either side, and I'm going to just leave the original seam that I have here so that it'll be adjustable for the future as my baby bump grows. So that's an option you can do. I decided to do it with this particular pattern. So now I'm going to trim the armhole, which is very delicate. I have messed up so many armholes in my lifetime. So I'm just going to really carefully trim it, and I'm marking it first just to get it nice and flat and situated. So I'm going to do the front, and then I'm going to go and trim the back very carefully. Whenever you're trimming something round like this, a little bit does add a lot to the circumference. So here it is totally trimmed, and now I'm going to put the binding on. So it's a small circle, so I'm going to take the plate off of my serger, and I am going to just carefully put the binding on. And the final step, of course, is hemming the dress. So I'm just going to do a little 1/4 inch baby hem with this one. Okay, so here's the finished dress. You can see the neckline and the side seam with the shirring. I have plenty of room for my baby bump to grow. I'm 18 weeks here, so there is lots of room. And here's a little runway walk for you as promised. You can see the armhole and the neckline. I did end up taking in the side seam so that I can let it out later. So I'm excited for this new series, and thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit the thumbs up button. You can follow me on my social medias at onyxartstudio.com and check out my website for my mailing list and my online dyeing workshops. If you enjoyed this video, here are some other popular videos on my channel for you to check out, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!